in the domain of the male priests at Karnak. However, the small temple was built far away from the main temple. At the edge of Karnak, Shepenupet built this temple, usually closed to the public. Although small, the images make a large statement. Here Shepenupet shows herself as the god's wife, yet she is holding the flail, a kingly implement, as well as the double cobra on her brow, again a male symbol of kingship. The carvings are done in Egyptian style, yet they are Nubianized. In her temple, she also names Amunidris as her successor. The close bond between the two, adoptive mother and daughter, can be appreciated. Shepenupet is breastfeeding the child Amunidris. A very unique statue of the god of gods, Amun, can tell us about the status of Amunidris. Sitting on the lap of Amun, being supported by him, is Amunidris. No other woman, man, pharaoh, nor queen, apart from Amenhotep III, have ever been shown on the lap of Amun. This is so significant. It shows that Amunidris has the closest relationship with Amun than anyone else. Although this faience statue is only a few centimeters tall, the glyphs are even more impressive. The glyphs on the side of this statue read out Chemet Neter, Sa'at Neter, Meri Amun, Amunidris, which translates to the god's wife, the beloved daughter of Amun, Amunidris. Right at the back of Karnak Temple, we can see Amunidris, here receiving the key of life from Amun, as he hands her 3 keys of life, 3 lifetimes. The woman from Nubia, brought to Egypt and made into a god. Amunidris was being prepared to be one of the most important religious figures in all of Egyptian history. In this small temple, Shepenupet is shown alongside the pharaoh who succeeded Pianki, named Shebitko. He was the son of Pianki, making him Amunidris' nephew. This pharaoh is shown in a noticeably different style to Egyptian pharaohs. Apart from different clothing, he also wears a uniquely Nubian cap crown, but this time with 2 cobras at his brow. This was a great symbol for the king of Egypt and Nubia to fully show he ruled 2 kingdoms. Her temple was built in the grounds of the Temple of Ramses III at Medinet Madi. Her beautifully decorated temple is where her priests, priestesses, and followers could leave offerings for her spirit. This is the temple for Amunidris. You can see her repeated several times. Her name in a cartouche repeated over and over, Amun-ir-Dis. The god's wife, shown here Amunidris, as Mut repeated on either side. Many scenes in the temple show Amunidris on her journey to meeting Osiris. The temple inscriptions call this place the House of Eternity of Amun-Idris. She is shown in both her spirit and soul form in the temple. She also shows her adoptive mother and her adopted daughter, helping her prepare for the journey to the next life. Amun-Idris's adoptive mother, Shepenupet. The high priestess pouring out water over her adopted daughter from Nubia, Amun-Idris, cleansing her to become the god's wife, training her to be the ruler of Thebes in the 25th Nubian dynasty. Yet harking back to a tradition by the god's wife and pharaoh Hatshepsut, but embracing elements of Sobek Neferu, Amun-Idris makes a bold statement. She shows herself dressed in male clothing, yet retaining her female body. This was to demonstrate that she was as powerful as an Egyptian king, yet at the same time she was a noble Nubian woman. On this same scene, she is accompanied by the god of wisdom, Thoth, and the leader of the dead, Anubis. They are leading her to her divine afterlife. The center of the temple would have housed a statue of her spirit, or Ka as they called it. This is where each day the next god's wife would come to give her thanks. But this house of eternity contains no burial chamber. The outside of the temple may provide clues. She was in fact buried under her temple. Her mummified body was placed in a subterranean chamber along with many of her beautiful grave goods.
Ramses wanted to be seen with as many gods as possible. In fact, there is only one known scene of a pharaoh worshipping Bastet, and it comes from Bubastis.
The reason why you see me climbing up this rock is because we have this image of the cat goddess Bastet. It was originally up here, someone's pushed it down, probably the Christians when they came to destroy this temple. But here is the cat goddess Bastet, shown with Ramses II giving her an offering of what looks like to be bread in a bread mold. But because this is the cat goddess, maybe he should have been giving her an offering of milk. So, at least I can see Bastet from this angle. We have found Bastet again. On this column, on the other side, we can see her name written, Bastet. But here, we can see the beautiful cat goddess shown seated on a throne.
It was known as one of the most beautiful temples in Egypt, probably because Ramses had input on its construction from his daughter. Bubastis was, after all, a mainly feminine city. Therefore, he installed a giant statue of her. The great royal wife and daughter of Pharaoh Ramses II, Meret Amun, the woman that replaced Queen Nefertari when Nefertari died. She's standing here at the city where the cat was worshipped, Bubastis, and she's absolutely monumental. The back of the statue of Meret Amun has been altered. A pharaoh from the 22nd dynasty changed the royal name to suit his wife, Koromama. This pharaoh was Shoshank, who had set up a residence in Bubastis in 943 BC.
This is the altar where a statue of Bastet would stand and the people would come to worship her. The high priestess would come to worship her right here. But Bubastis is actually a much larger site. This is a map of when the site was first excavated. We can see we are here in the temple. Right over there is the mud brick fort. We have the pottery. As we go down, we have the causeway going straight across here, leading to the statue of Merit Amun. And around this temple, all the way around, are mud brick houses where priests and locals lived. Bastet was the local goddess of this region. This site where Mary and Jesus came and rested has now been completely destroyed. It's very sad, actually, that a place that gave refuge to the Holy Family was then written about in the Bible and mentioned as Bubastis, where it says that this city will be brought to the ground for its pagan worship. Well, standing here at the city of the cat, it is completely to the ground.
In Luxor, within the largest temple complex in the world, at Karnak, Amenhotep III built this temple and dedicated it to the wife of the all-powerful god, Amun. Her name was Mut. Amenhotep III, shown here in the Temple of Mut. Amun on earth, Queen T, would be Mut on earth. And this temple here was constructed and begun by the great pharaoh Amenhotep III. She was generally appearing as a woman, but in some instances she was connected to the lioness Sekhmet. The Temple of Mut features the most amount of statues of the goddess Sekhmet, the lioness goddess. The reason for this is that one of the forms of the goddess Mut was a lioness. You see, the ferocious side of the lioness was Sekhmet, but to appease Sekhmet, they would feed her beer dyed red with ochre, so that she would think it was blood. Once Sekhmet had drank the blood, she became calm, the mother figure, which is Mut. So it makes sense to have the two sides of the lioness worshipped in this temple. The festival of Sekhmet here at the Mut Temple is strikingly similar to the Bastet festival that took place in Bubastis. Sekhmet shown here, holding a papyrus or a lotus plant, and the Ankh, the key of life, with the crown of Mut, with the several cobras all around. This was a temple started by Amenhotep III. This was a statue made by Amenhotep III. Yet on the side is the name of a Libyan named Sheshank. Sheshank, who as we know had a residence at Bubastis, wrote about his many accomplishments at Karnak. On one wall, he writes about how he defended Egypt from Judah, and in particular, defended Bubastis. He lists 156 regions that he defeated. Many of these conquests of Sheshank are also written about in the Bible. Just adjacent, from the columns of Taharqa, here we have another pharaoh of non-Egyptian birth. This is Sheshank, a Libyan pharaoh from the 22nd dynasty, ruling the Delta. This pylon is clearly an extension. We can see the wall here, built by Sheshank. Yet next to him, at a vertical line, we can see that this would have been the end of a pylon, extended out, made much grander, and you can even see the god Montu cut off from the wall of Sheshank that has clearly not even been finished. Because the priests had other plans. Although by the time of Sheshank, Egypt was divided, with priests ruling in Thebes, while foreign Libyan descendants such as Sheshank ruled in the delta. The divide started back at the time of Ramses IX. There are some scenes at Karnak which reveal what was going on. We see the pharaoh over here with a priest, the priest being adorned with gold, a similar scene that we see on Lake Nasser in the tomb of Penaut, with lower-level priests giving thanks to the high priest. This is a very telling scene because the pharaoh is shown here on the same scale as the priest. They've put the pharaoh on a little platform to just raise him that little bit extra so the pharaoh would not notice immediately this is a cover-up. But on this wall, they have made pharaoh and high priest the exact same scale. The hands are touching on the same level. They are here indeed equals. And this is where we start to see the priests take a higher interest in politics. The priests start to take back their own. With Ramses IX now ruling the Delta, Herihor, a high priest, ruled over Thebes. The priests took up control. This also trickled down into Bubastis. Around 747 BC, priests in Bubastis and Saqqara were selling cat mummies to general pilgrims.
I am traveling further south to get the answers. It is here at Kom Ombo that another cult center of Sobek was established. This temple was mainly renovated during the Ptolemaic rule, with images having a Greek flair to them, and even some scenes showing the great female pharaoh Cleopatra. Sobek was a crocodile, and therefore he was seen as a god protecting the waters of the Nile.
This temple is dedicated obviously to Sobek, the crocodile god, but also, in part, to Horus. And these two, when they came together, this temple was used in the later period, during the Greek period, as almost like a hospital. People would come here to be healed. Sobek, over here, would then be considered to heal, the skin and burns and things like that. But the Greeks believed Sobek was doing here when they transformed this temple into a hospital. And they then believed that Horus would heal the eyes. So these two gods came together here and were seen as healing deities, but before the Greek time, they had very different roles.
It is at the back of Kom Ombo Temple that we find proof of crocodiles being housed here.
These pits at the back of Kom Ombo are believed to be where they kept the temple crocodile. This would be one crocodile that embodied the spirit of Sobek. They kept them in here, and one priest had the lucky task of getting to put jewelry on this crocodile, and some of them even had painted nails. There are other pits around the temple as well that housed even bigger crocodiles.
Many of these temple crocodiles were mummified when they died. These Nile crocodiles were divine after all. But these were kept in water, in sunlight at Kom Ombo. But this doesn't answer my question about the water pits at Qasr Qarun Temple in Fayum. Could Sobek Neferu really have had Nile crocodiles in the dark waters below the temple
that survived. The King's List at Abydos in the Temple of Seti I from the 19th dynasty, however, excludes Sobek Neferu and other female pharaohs from the list of kings up to that point in time. Perhaps it was Seti's way of asserting that male rule was the only fully recognized form of pharaohship.
Seti I, standing here wearing the blue crown with the red cap tied at the back, burning incense with his son, Prince Ramses II. The names that are listed here starts with Pharaoh Meni, or Nama, as some refer to him. We have Teti, we go down the list, and we end up here at the 4th dynasty. We have Snefru, Khufu, Jedefra, Khafra. We go down through the dynasties. Ka-Neferah, we have Pepi. We have all of these great pharaohs of ancient Egypt listed here with the names below of Seti Meren Ptah. Seti, the one that pleases Ptah. With his throne name here, Mat Men Ra, or Men Mat Ra, meaning the place of the justice of Ra. It is incredible that this continues. We have Ramses I, Tutmosis III, Tutmosis IV, Amenhotep III. We then skip forward to Horemheb, Ramses I again, because Ramses I was around. We have him listed here twice. And we even have here, ending with the name of Seti.
She is, however, mentioned at Karnak Temple in the King's List.
Isolated, out in the desert, is the stunning Medinet Madi, meaning city of the past.
Around Medinet Madi, around the temple here dedicated to Sobek and Renenutet, you'll see on the top of all of the sand dunes, it's like topped with, it looks like little black caps. But when you look closely, it's actually pottery shards. We have pottery shards like this, and this was brought here for thousands of years. People came here, brought offerings of wine and grain, and they left them here to appease the goddesses and the gods that were worshipped at the temple. So when we look at all of this, just think about the thousands of people that came here wanting to make a connection to the temple and leaving these maybe to make their life a little better.
Because the temple and city is so rural, it was supported by the priests and pilgrims coming to make offerings to the gods. The pilgrimage would have led them down the stairs, being greeted by ferocious guardians, the avenue of lion sphinxes. Strolling down the Sphinx Avenue is truly a journey through time, passing numerous lion sphinxes dating from 1800 BC to 200 AD, from Egyptian to Greek and Roman. Beyond the first set of lions, you enter a Ptolemaic period temple from 300 BC, with its many columns and a central altar dedicated to the goddess Isis. Once closed up by limestone bricks, however, this site was not for Isis.
This temple is dedicated to Renenutet, and she is a snake goddess. Most goddesses are snakes. In the hieroglyphs, Isis is drawn as a snake, Nephthys is drawn as a snake, Mut is drawn as a snake, and so is Renenutet. And in their snake forms, they are protectors. thus, we have so many lions as part of this brigade as we go through to the sanctuary of the temple. There's so many lions and serpents and crocodiles, and these are not boogie boogie things. They're meant to be inspiring, protecting, building up one's energy.
Further down the avenue, you enter a small secondary temple in undecorated Old Kingdom style, possibly repurposed as a storage for offerings from pilgrims. Further, two recumbent lions guard the entrance to the pylon of the main temple. Upon entering, the god of writing and wisdom, Thoth, is shown. The inner Middle Kingdom relief shows the goddess of the site, Renenutet, suckling a child on her lap, protected by the vulture neckbit with a pharaoh offering to them. Before continuing, two statues of a queen wearing a Greek dress flank the entrance. She is Ptolemaic queen Arsinoe, who had a large following here after her death. Although one can spend hours exploring outside, refuge from the sun can be found inside the snake Renenutet and Sobek Crocodile Temple.
This is the temple here at Medinet Madi, which is dedicated to Renenutet and Sobek. What's interesting is, on the columns, we have the name of Amun Mut III, the father of Sobek Neferu. We have a little cartouche of Sobek Neferu over here, which I'll show to you in a second. But this temple has such a vast history, started in the 12th dynasty by Sobek Neferu and her father. But we have a scene inside here of Ramses II. We see Ramses II in the middle, with the god Sobek on the side, the god Anubis on the other side, and they're pouring out these beautiful ankh shapes, which are symbolic for water, holy water, purification water. What's even more interesting is, drawn onto Ramses, we can see another pharaoh has been drawn in black charcoal, showing building a foundation stone, so extending this temple. This temple has such a huge history. We have Thutmose and Hatshepsut, and this went on all the way into the Roman period. It is absolutely incredible.
The expansion of the temple from various kings was to appease Renenutet for a bountiful harvest, and Sobek for the continuation of flowing water. Aset takes a moment to read texts from the temple to the group.
As many wish to have offspring of children praying to you, they acquire the blessing of children. Persuading the golden Nile, you lead down an appropriate time upon the land of Egypt as blessing for men.
These texts are originally from the reign of Amun Mut. He's shown throughout the small temple, offering and receiving from the two patron gods of Fayum. While offering, Amun Mut in turn receives 3 chained ankhs from the crocodile-headed god Sobek. At the Cairo Museum, several pristine stela and ostraca from Medinet Madi can be found, showing the protector of the Nile, Sobek. A Horus priest from Saqqara during the 19th dynasty, named Nakht, even made offerings
to Renenutet, the slender, elegant goddess with her cobra appearance stands behind the patron god of Saqqara, Ptah, ensuring the land shall be fruitful. Back at Medinet Madi, carved into the papyrus-styled columns in one of her many forms, Renenutet welcomes the visitor as a full cobra.
So here we see the goddess Renenutet. She's holding the Ankh, a symbol of life. And then she's got the serpent head. So sometimes you'll see a human body with a cow head, a ram head, a hawk head. This is her with her serpent head.
Inside, her name appears very clearly, starting from above, from the mouth for R, the 2 water signs for N, the quail U, and 2 loaves of bread for the double T sound, Renenutet. The niche in the sanctuary once housed a triad statue of Amenemhat and his son, with Renenutet in the center. Many scenes in the sanctum show almost life-sized images of Amenemhat before Sobek and Renenutet. With his son behind, his son wears a cobra nemes, meaning he was co-regent at the time. 350 years later, female pharaoh Hatshepsut added her mark here in one of the niches, followed by her successor Thutmose III. However, before Hatshepsut, the daughter of Amenemhat became pharaoh and added her mark here in the temple of her namesake.
Just around the corner, hidden away, badly damaged from rain and from sand. If I climb up here, we have the cartouche of the possible first ever female pharaoh, Sobek Neferu. We see the 3 Nefers and the Sobek symbol at the bottom. Sobek Neferu, the great female pharaoh that ruled on behalf of her younger brother. As a pharaoh, she was named a pharaoh. This is one of the only remnants that we have of this obscure queen.
When we leave the temple and venture off, on the side streets along the Avenue of Sphinxes is where the juicy history lies. Clusters of mud brick houses that belonged to priests, farmers, and workmen line the avenue on either side. The closer you lived to the temple, the more important you were. And the most important had a sphinx protecting the stairs up to their homes. Because this area was inhabited for over 4,000 years, many different styles of houses and protective sphinxes are found. From human-headed lions with Roman attributes to winged griffins. Some Greek inscriptions here even mention Cleopatra sending taxes to the temple. This is thousands of years of real life, so well preserved, from pharaohs to Christians, all once called this place home.
I'm often asked what it is about Egypt that I love so much. And when I'm there walking through the ancient temples, seeing the writing and murals on the walls, the magic of that time and place reaches across time and space and pulls me in. And it's this magic that I want to share with others so they can feel it. And it can help them to feel more connected to the magic that's possible in their life.
I hope that they feel joy, that they feel protection, that they feel abundance, that they understand that their lives are being sculpted and changing. Of course, the serpent goddess is a goddess of change. Because she drops her skin and she grows a new one, and so we understand that that's what we're doing all the time. We're always changing, we're always different. And yet the snake, as it drops its skin, becomes a bigger snake the next time around. So it grows by shedding. So that's one of the mysteries of abundance, is to give away of yourself to receive a greater self.
A reason Renenutet was the protector of the harvest was that cobras eat rats that would destroy the grain and crops. Within the priests' homes, thousands of ostraka texts were discovered. Written in Greek and Demotic, they reveal daily life, personal horoscopes, school registers, and corruption. A Ptolemaic priest named Phatres wrote several letters exposing how the temple was misusing offerings and that the temple college was showing signs of cult-related misconduct. A smaller building, protected by Isis, was where 2 large votive mummified crocodiles were stored, slotted into these shrines as a way to keep Sobek's power contained. Around them, young crocodiles were incubated and reared, with over 30 crocodile eggs found around this structure. Some texts even reveal that priests were selling inferior mummified crocodiles to pilgrims.
I've been told that in here is a high official's home, and it's meant to be pretty spectacular. So, oh my God. Wow. The frescoes are just, oh my God. It's so beautiful. Roman period frescoes. The history here is just so vast. You can see here the high official's house, pretty much like you get in a Roman house, Pompeii, wherever else, marked by these huge ornate columns that were carved to show the status of the person.
In the oasis, located just 5 kilometers out of Tunis village, it is known as the Palace of Qarun.
A temple built in the 12th dynasty by Amenemhat and continued by his daughter, the female pharaoh from the 12th dynasty, Sobek Neferu.
Almost nothing remains of this 12th dynasty temple. The new temple was built over the foundations of the old temple in 300 BC, and only one god is depicted here.
Here at this temple of Sobek, Sobek is a crocodile god known in the Fayum area. He was a god of war and protection for the pharaoh, and he was mentioned as early as the pyramid text, which we find in the 5th dynasty pyramids of Unas out at Saqqara. So he then later became part of the coffin texts as well, and later the Book of the Dead.
The temple may seem small from outside, but inside it is enormous and hides many nooks and crannies. Each massive doorway is topped with 32 rearing stone cobras above a winged sun disk. Passing through the entrance hall, the beige walls are contrasted with the soot-blackened ceilings, damaged in more modern times when families lived in here. To the sides are several small chambers leading off to the side and that turn around corners. While looking for clues, be aware of the bats who have made this their home. We are the intruders. Exploring down the labyrinth of hallways, we can see that these walls were once decorated. The limestone has been chipped at repeatedly by ancient Christian visitors to erase the sacred texts. Much of this temple is a mystery, with several pits
dug meters down. What was their purpose? Water lines lead us to suspect that they were pools that probably contained crocodiles, connecting Sobek, the energy of the crocodile, to this place. As one crosses over the walkway, intact, you transport your imagination back to the priests coming here to the inner sanctum. A bridge over a 2-floor-deep pit crosses over to the 3 niches that contain 3 statues of Sobek. Crossing the pit bridge is unique and connected you with meeting Sobek, who lurked in the waters under your feet. The unlucky chosen priest was tasked with going down to give offerings to the temple crocodile. At the entrance are 2 letterbox-type slits where 2 votive baby crocodile mummies were slotted into. But the temple raises more questions than answers.
We're not actually sure why they even decided to build a temple to Sobek out here in this arid landscape with only the Fayum oasis to provide water. Was it to bring healing and protection to this area, yet this area is not a water area? Or was it to invoke the water god, Sobek, the god of the Nile, to direct the Nile to come and make this land fertile?
At the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, vivid examples of crocodile worship are on display. Known as the Crocodile Papyrus, this scene from the Book of the Dead shows a priestess bowing down before a crocodile in the river. Ironic, since the sweet smell of papyrus repels crocodiles. The Greeks called this area Crocodiliopolis, the place of the crocodiles. The priests that worshipped crocodiles in Fayum at one time faced uproar from locals. In the late period around 50 BC, the priests had raised their power once again and increased their taxes. It was here at Qasr Qarun that some of this drama played out. Going up the many flights of stairs, we enter an area once reserved only for priests and royals.
And when you come onto the roof of this temple, it's one of the very few temples where the roof is still fully intact. When you walk out here, you can see the settlements around, the Roman baths that were built, the houses where the priests and the farmers from the area that fed this temple would have lived. And I can just imagine when there was the strike happening in the Roman times, well, not exactly Roman, just before Cleopatra died, people coming here complaining to the temple, "Where's our grain?" And the priest, who would have been too scared to go downstairs because he might have been taken out, would have stood up here, spoken to the people, "Your grain is on the way, we're waiting for the taxes, you haven't worshipped the gods justly," making all of these assumptions to the people why they were not receiving their food. Because after all, this temple is dedicated to Sobek. Sobek is the god of the Nile. We're in an oasis in the middle of the desert. Water is very scarce up here.
After the death of Cleopatra in 30 BC, Egypt was under Roman rule. Qasr Qarun became a hotspot for Romans posing as Egyptians. From this vantage point of the temple roof, we can see the layout foundations for many Roman settlements. Many Roman-style houses were built between the Egyptian ones. The Romans renamed this town Dionysius, after the Greco-Roman god of wine, since much of the wine from ancient Egypt came from right here. The vast Roman town saw many new innovations, including Roman baths. Much of Dionysius still lays untouched beneath the sand. In a room that was once covered, now bathed in sunlight, is the only inscription still remaining. With his human body wearing a feathered skirt, holding a Waz scepter, appearing with a crocodile head, is Sobek, near a slit for sunlight, connecting him to Ra. Next to him is an image of what would appear to be a Ptolemaic pharaoh. The upper part of the temple is dotted with strange chambers that no one knows the exact functions of. Were these housing for priests, treasury or storage rooms, or was this where they would mummify the sacred temple crocodiles? One chamber even has a drainage canal with a hole cut in the middle. Were the priests bathed here, or baby crocodiles raised here? All we know is that water could come through the gutter into the chamber and down to the mysterious caverns below.
Isn't this temple something wonderful?
Yeah.
Qasr Qarun, like much of Fayum, still holds many ancient secrets. She also proceeded forward with the construction of the largest temple at the site of Dendera, on a temple that her father was not able to complete. Dendera Temple is the only intact temple of Cleopatra that we can marvel on today.
The most decorated ceiling in all of ancient Egypt is here at Dendera.
With the interior painted in a vivid turquoise color, the terraced temple is gloriously decorated and dedicated to the goddess of love and beauty, Hathor. A son was born, Caesarion. Cleopatra then invited Caesar on a cruise down the Nile, where she showed off the beauty of her country and escorted him around Dendera Temple. This would have been where Cleopatra showed off a special scene at the back wall of the temple she was commissioning.
The most famous scene of Cleopatra that's shown at the entrance of the temple of Dendera, the temple of goddess Hathor, goddess of beauty and love, it shows her with her son.
And here we have the main pharaoh of this temple, Cleopatra the Seventh, with in front of her is Caesar. Next to Caesar is their son, presented as the son of Hathor, since Cleopatra was Hathor, Isis on earth. Ibi, the son of Hathor here, is in fact the son of Cleopatra and Caesar, Caesarion. On the opposite wall is Cleopatra shaking a sistrum with a man in front of her who is burning incense to the gods. This man is a representation of what she hoped Caesarion would grow up to be. This is one of the best images that we have of Cleopatra, one of the only remaining images. And above her is her name. On the left cartouche, actually, spells out the name of Cleopatra. C, L is the lion, E is the reed, O is the rope, Cleo, P is the box, Cleopa, A is the bird, and then we have hand, and that is actually the D sound, not the T sound. So we have Cleopatra. So we might actually be pronouncing her name incorrectly. It's not Cleopatra, because clearly written here in hieroglyphs, it is Cleopatra.
An oasis, Siwa. This is where Alexander's dreams would become a reality. They rode through this landscape, which has scarcely changed since then, arriving at this mount. Here was the Temple of Amun that housed the oracle. The temple was built around 700 BC by Greek mercenaries who settled in the area. The temple is a unique mix of Egyptian and Greek architecture, built right at the edge of the hill. Throughout history, many notable people would come to this temple to ask questions to the god Amun, where the oracle priest would answer on behalf of the god. This is where one of history's most powerful men once visited.
I'm literally walking in the same footsteps as Alexander the Great. Up these steps, I'm gonna take you in the Amun Temple, where Alexander received his message from the oracle.
However, what happened in these hallowed halls remains somewhat of a mystery still.
So this is where Alexander would have walked into. Coming here, right in the center, would be the statue of Amun-Ra, and Alexander would have spoken to Amun, asked him whatever questions took place, we're not exactly sure, and Amun spoke back to him. When Amun spoke back to him, he said, Alexandros, you are my son. And this legitimized Alexander's claim to becoming a pharaoh. Alexander would have left. As he left, he swept away his footprints. He was given a broom from one of the priests. He swept away his footprints and left the room. This is one version of the story. Now, there is a debate happening as to exactly how the oracle gave him this message. The oracle is, of course, a high priest that would probably take a hallucinogenic and see these visions and speak as the voice of the god. The voice would come either from above or from below. We're not exactly sure on which one of these theories is correct. In this room, I believe we would have had the statue of Amun. It makes sense. All Egyptian temples show the god in the central room. And above, there is a ledge and a window. And I believe it is that window where the oracle would have sat and spoken down. And Alexander would have heard that voice, believing it to be the voice of Amun himself. We have this little passage on the side here where it's blocked off now, but long ago, there's a staircase going up to that exact window that I spoke about now, where I believe the oracle would sit and speak down as the voice of Amun. This is the one that I like to believe. This is where the oracle was in the version of the story I like. There's another version where they believe in this room, in the third room. Down here is a well with an entrance from the outside, because on the other side of this wall, it is a steep cliff on the mountain. oracle or the high priest would come in through this doorway, go into the well, and speak up as the voice of Amun. And in this room, we have the area where the sound could come through, like a well, and through the hole here in the ground, you can see the sunlight coming through. That would connect and the sound could come through. And it's believed that over here would have stood, in one of the versions, the statue of Amun, and the oracle's voice would come out from here. So there is a debate going around as to exactly which room this took place in. I prefer the central room as it makes more sense with Egyptian beliefs. A third theory, which is a combination of both, which is Alexander came into this room. There was already a carved window here. The oracle went up the stairs and spoke through that window, which is more likely because we have the Temple of Horus, where we have the window above, which has the oracle speaking from above. So that makes more sense than a well. Alexander would have come and stood exactly on this block that I'm standing on now, and looked through this hole and spoke to Amun through the hole. And he would not be able to see the oracle sitting above, it's blocked off, thus creating the illusion that it is the statue of Amun speaking. And he could speak to Amun through here, because only the high priest and a pharaoh was allowed to go into the main sanctuary. And Alexander would speak to Amun through here, and this is where he received his message, on this block, standing here speaking to the god. So we're not exactly sure which version of the story to believe. I prefer the first one, where Alexander was allowed right in front of the priest. But all three of these stories are plausible.
Once Alexander was proclaimed as the son of Amun, he allegedly was processioned through the village, accompanied by 80 priests of Amun. Amun was the principal god of Egypt. He was also known as the god of the gods. He was seen as the equal to the Greek god Zeus, and in many instances they were combined, creating Zeus Amun. Very few images still remain in the temple, yet we can see some scenes of Amun with his wife Mut. The cartouche of Pharaoh Amasis has been found in this site, which makes even more sense being built by Greek mercenaries, as Pharaoh Amasis had sent much gold to help rebuild the burnt-down temple of Delphi in Greece. Of course, this temple is surrounded in myth. Perseus was said to have visited here before beheading Medusa, and Hercules may also have been here once. The temple and the village of Agurmi surrounding it was said to have been founded by two banished Theban priestesses, one of which went to Greece and founded the Temple of Dodona. Another foundation myth is that the Greek god Dionysus was lost in the Libyan desert. Almost about to die from thirst, a figure appeared and led him to the spring of Agurmi. To give thanks for his life, he erected the temple and blessed the oasis to become forever fertile. All of these are good stories, but are myths. The reality is, it was built by the Greek mercenaries, the men that aided the Egyptian army. This ruined temple was built around 3,400 years ago in Egypt's 30th dynasty, the last native ruling pharaohs of Egypt, built by Pharaoh Nectanebo. Dedicated to Amun and his wife Mut, this temple was linked to the Oracle Temple by a causeway. Much of the blue color still remains from this temple. The top shows a man named Wen Amun
He was the original commissioner of this temple. He was a Libyan man who was the overseer and eventual ruler of Siwa. The lower registers show Pharaoh Nectanebo along with the gods. Here he is seen alongside the mother goddess Mut. Atum, Sekhmet, and Geb are also present. Although much of this temple was destroyed in antiquity, much of it was still standing until 1811 when a terrible earthquake hit Siwa and the majority of the temple collapsed. The vulture goddess still visible on the collapsed ceiling at Amada Temple. This ruin in the shadow of the Oracle Temple reveals much of the religious politics of Siwa.
You can see next bit.
Yes, the wings of Nikbet.
Yeah. So this was once the ceiling. These blocks.
Yes, ceiling, excellent.
Yeah.
It's a ceiling. There's a sheriff, like a policeman in charge, in all of this area. He want to build a police station, and instead to do effort and buy blocks, so he came and dismantled the temple to build the police station.
No way.
Read about it, I'm sure what I'm telling you. Back then, the people, they don't know the value of it. Only for them, it is something mystery or they can't understand it from the past, and so they don't give any attention or respect to it.
But even the ancient Egyptians, they recycle things. We see that sometimes they take the blocks, it's upside down, it's not...
We saw that menu in Habu Temple, sorry, in
Luxor.
Yes, in Luxor, in Khunsu Temple.
Yes.
Yes.
Upside down pieces. So this recycling, it's nothing new.
Nothing new.
Alexander went south to visit the home of his spiritual father Amun. He visited the great temple of Amun at Karnak. Now pharaoh, he was allowed into the inner sanctuary where a small golden statue of Amun rested in a shrine. Alexander would have come here and performed a ceremony reserved only for the pharaoh and the high priests.
The inner sanctuary at Karnak Temple, dedicated to Amun-Ra. Right in the center, we have this plinth where the statue of the god Amun would be placed. The boat would be placed here as well. Every morning the priests would come in, open the doors, and adorn the statue of Amun-Ra with oils, makeup, leave offerings, and before they left they would sweep their footprints away, leaving the house of the god in immaculate state. This, right here, was the center of ancient Egypt.
Slight traces of Alexander remain on the walls of this sanctuary. In the grounds of Karnak, a large statue depicting Alexander would be erected. He wears the Egyptian Nemes headdress, yet appears as a Greek, with his hair poking through the band and his neck slightly tilted to one side, a characteristic from all depictions of Alexander. The newly crowned foreign pharaoh would then visit the Ipet-Reset Temple, the southern sanctuary, now known as Luxor Temple. At Luxor Temple, Alexander commissioned the inner sanctuary to be extended. He had a new shrine built in the existing sanctuary, where he showed himself giving many offerings to Amun, wearing various crowns of Egypt, like the blue Kepresh war crown.
We can see Alexander and Amun-Min. We know it's Alexander from his name.
Yeah.
Alexandros.
Alexandros.
Here we have Alexander the Great offering jars to Amun-Min with his erect, circumcised penis.
Yes.
But there's something interesting happening here that you told me about. What's going on, Lami?
something coming out from the semen, because Alexander Amun men ejaculating in front of Alexander the Great. So from semen, there's something similar to sperm comes out. We have controversial here. Some people said the text was here, and someone he just connect between the scene and also the penis of Ammon. So it's controversial. Until now, we can understand really what's going on. If it's a sperm, did the ancient Egyptian invent microscopes?
I doubt that.
Yeah.
They knew something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But it's interesting we see that because we have a festival once a year where the pharaoh had to ejaculate into the Nile
Yeah.
to keep the Nile fertile
Fertile.
in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So
it is very weird, and at the same time part of their culture. Maybe we can understand it, but by their time it's very understood.
Yeah.
Are acceptable too.
Yeah. In the inner sanctuary at Luxor Temple would have been housed the boat that had the statue of the god Khonsu, the son of Amun and Mut. The boat for Khonsu had the head of a ram, a symbol for the son of Amun. And once a year, the boat would be taken out and brought to Karnak Temple down the Avenue of Sphinxes.
Alexander the Great here, he wear the crown of South, and there he wear the crown of North. And behind him, the provinces of ancient Egypt in South. Above each one of them, the name of the province. So here we have like Itfu, and here we have a female, the only exception here. Do you know why? Because she is Luxor, Waset. He wanted to recognize Luxor and make Luxor like distinguished. That's why he made it as a lady.
A pharaoh was seen as the reincarnation of Horus, and thus Alexander's wish had come true. He was a god. Being the son of Amun, too, meant he was a god on earth. It would have been here in Luxor where Alexander saw the power of the pharaohs. Amongst them was Ramses II. Alexander saw the might of this king and the empire he wielded strewn across the walls of the temples. Alexander would adopt the symbol which mighty pharaohs like Ramses had been ordained to wear. He showed himself wearing the curved ram's horns, showing the sheer power connected to Amun.
Inside this smaller section of Luxor Temple is a piece of Ramses II, shown here with the ram's horns of Amun. The ram's horns that would be repeated by every pharaoh that wanted to be connected to the reign of Ramses the Great.
Alexander emulated the great pharaohs such as Ramses to take on their strength to build his empire. He commissioned new coins of himself, showing the ram's horns of Amun, so that all throughout his empire would know he was Pharaoh. The half-brother of Alexander the Great would become the next crowned pharaoh of Egypt, Philip III. Philip proved to be a very weak king of Egypt and Macedon, and served as more of a puppet controlled by more powerful people. Philip III wanted to emulate Alexander the Great. He depicted himself at Karnak Temple. On the outside of Amun's inner shrine are many images of Pharaoh Philip. He is shown being crowned by Amun. And other scenes show Alexander's half-brother giving offerings to the gods.
Here he is, Philip II. We can see his name up there, P, which is the box, L-I-P, Philip.
he was trying to show to the Egyptian people that he was worthy of this title. The same way Alexander was, being seen directly with the gods in the most important temple in all of Egypt. A few months after Philip III was named as pharaoh in 322 BC, Roxanne, one of the wives of Alexander, gave birth to a son named Alexander IV.
As you come out of the hypostyle hall, on the side here, it's the battle of Seti I with Lebanon. And this battle was started about wood because Seti wanted these specific trees from Lebanon, and the Lebanese did not want to give it to Seti. So he went in, he fought against them. You can see Seti riding in on his horse and his chariot, killing the people, fighting, and then eventually at the top, the leader of Lebanon surrendering and giving the trees over to Seti. And this was built by Ramses II to tell the story of his father. He wanted people to remember what his father did. And if you come around the corner, here we see Seti riding back on his chariot, showing different battles that he was fighting against all the other people that were opposing Egypt. And as he comes here, we see Seti crossing the Nile. And this is a great image because we see the Nile, we've got the reeds on either side, and in between we have fish and crocodiles. That's how you know it's the Nile. And as he comes back, the people of Egypt are offering bread and incense to Seti. He's got his captives, and here is Seti giving offerings back to Amun, saying, "Thank you, Amun, for giving me the strength to fight my battle."
They left their mark on this island, the boundary between Nubia and Egypt. With the goddess Hathor smiling out, this temple was built by Thutmose III. All the way back in 1479 BC, this temple was dedicated to Egypt's patron god, Amun, shown with blue skin in his hidden form. Thutmose III led several successful campaigns into Nubia. However, this temple was began by his stepmother, Hatshepsut. Thutmose III's son and successor, Amenhotep II, built a small chapel here, and his son, Thutmose IV, went on to build a beautifully decorated chapel after one of his campaigns in Nubia, and he dedicated it to a Nubian god.
Thutmose IV being offered the key of life from the Nubian god of this region, Mandulus.
This island has layers upon layers upon layers of habitation. Ancient Egyptian homes built over by Roman homes, then built over again by Christian and Jewish homes. Elephantine was a great meeting and trading point for thousands of years, yet Aswan's export was granite.
A naos here, lying on its side, made out of granite from this area from Aswan, some of the best granite in Egypt. And this naos would have housed a statue to Khnum, the ram-headed god.
Khnum, the god that was worshipped here at Elephantine, the ram that lived on this island, the god of creation, the one who would mold the image of man.
One of the main deities that were worshipped here at Elephantine, apart from the main god of the island, which is Khnum, we have Anuket. And Anuket is a very interesting goddess. She's known for protecting the Nile. And what's really strange, she's shown with this sort of cone-shaped crown. And this cone-shaped crown is what inspired Nefertiti to have her own crown. Because Nefertiti is shown with a unique crown only worn by Nefertiti. And here we can see that quite well that this crown is what inspired Nefertiti. So in a way, because Nefertiti was divine in her own way, Nefertiti might have been wanting to connect with the protection of the Nile.
There are many temples on Elephantine Island dedicated to female deities, like this one dedicated to the goddess of love and beauty, Hathor. This temple is attributed to a pharaoh who spread the empire deeper into Nubia.
We have Thutmose III here, wearing his military uniform, being blessed by the creator god, Khnum. On the other side, we have Satis, shown with the crown, the white crown of Egypt, wearing a double falcon necklace. She's so beautiful. And she is on the other side, holding Thutmose next to Amun.
Yet it was a female pharaoh who commissioned this temple, the stepmother of Thutmose III.
Hatshepsut here, we know it's Hatshepsut because she has been completely chiseled out. All the chisel marks are visible here. And it's interesting because this temple, you can see the images inside the temple actually resemble Hatshepsut, not Thutmose III. It's a more feminine face. But Thutmose III came in, stamped his name, and took out Hatshepsut. But some good guy did come along at one point, and some of the names of Thutmoses have been hacked out because that guy knew that this was the real builder of this temple. This is Hatshepsut, and here is an example of where someone came in. They knew that this is not Thutmoses. They came, they started chipping out his name, and someone caught them because obviously they had stopped.
This island was not only a place of worship. Many houses made of mud brick are dotted around, layers upon layers of thousands of years of habitation.
We have just been presented with a mummified child's foot, a baby's foot. One of the guys here have found it in one of these homes. It is, you can see the temples, you can see the homes, Lami.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come in contact with an ancient Egyptian, a piece of the real person.
Different feelings at all.
Yeah.
And the baby has like only 4 months or 6 months. It seems very, very small. I think only 4 or 6 months, not bigger than this.
It's amazing.
We can feel their spirit, how
this is the real person.
Real person, real baby. We can imagine how his father was sad and his mother was sad when he passed away.
Yeah.
So now, me and you, we went back thousands of years with them with this baby.
Exactly. This is the real ancient Egypt right here.
Yeah. The first time in my life to see a baby mummified.
It's very touching.
Yes, very, very touching. Very.
Shukran gazela.
Elephantine is a strange mix of habitation, temples, and tombs. Around 2250 BC, Hekaib, a nomarch around the reign of Pharaoh Pepi, had fought against the Nubians and became the pharaoh's chief trading officer. Hekaib was revered by many, including his very distant successor, Sarenput. Going back to that mummified baby's foot, it made me think about the people that lived here, not the pharaohs, the ordinary people. What was life like for them? Crossing the Aswan High Dam, we are now on Lake Nasser. The island temple of Kalabsha is dedicated to a Nubian god named Mandulus. The construction of this temple was completed during Roman Emperor Augustus's reign around 30 BC.
You'll actually find throughout many Egyptian temples in the later period that there are empty cartouches. And even though this cartouche didn't have a name in it, someone has tried to just gouge out
probably just to make sure that if someone was planning to put their name in there, it would ruin their reputation anyway. A temple would now be, erected by the priests to dedicate it to a certain god. And then depending on how the pharaoh was pleasing priests, they could then get their names placed into certain areas to connect them now to the temple because they've reached that level. And this is the inner sanctuary filled with the gods, equal on either side.
Because this temple is dedicated to the Nubian god Mangulus, inside we see a strong connection as well to the Egyptian god Horus. From the roof of Kalabsha, you get an idea of the remoteness of the site.
Oh wow, shukran.
One of the theories about why Roman Emperor Augustus completed this temple and dedicated it to Mangulus, a Nubian god, was to get the Nubians on his side before his attempted invasion. Left is Nubian Mangulus with Egyptian Horus on the right in this sparsely decorated temple.
Around the back of Kalabsha Temple, we have a pharaoh offering to Isis, Horus, and Mangulus in his human form, with a bit of blue paint still on his face, and inlays for precious stones in the eyes. We go on, we have Horus again, Isis, and Osiris.
1 kilometer away is a much more recent temple that was also relocated. This temple was made of much smaller stones, and by the early 20th century it had completely collapsed, making its relocation much easier. We already sailed past its original location, 40 kilometers north. This is the Temple of Dhaka. An effigy of the Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, was housed in this naos, with this beautiful light effect around, a repeated theme in ancient Egypt, the balance between light and dark. Anhor and Mangulus merging as one, the combination of Egyptian and Nubian gods are shown in this temple because it was a collaborative effort between Greek pharaoh Ptolemy IV and the Nubian pharaoh Archemani from Meroe. Dating from around 220 BC, the king from deep south in Meroe, Archemani, is shown in this sanctuary. The temple was originally built to affirm the ties between Egypt and Nubia in their trade and military efforts. In the Roman period around 30 BC, Emperor Augustus expanded this temple, building the large entrance pylon. Then, Emperor Tiberius transformed this temple into a Roman fort. Following that, it was used by the Christians, and many Jewish graffiti can be found on the walls still, some believe showing the Ark of the Covenant. This new landscape of Lake Nasser remains unspoiled, and I hope it stays that way. Another Roman period temple, undecorated, was moved in 1966, 35 kilometers south, now known as the Temple of Merharka. It was dedicated to Isis and Serapis. A few meters away is another marvel.
This is the temple of Thutmosis III. From the original location at Amada, this entire temple, because it was so fragile, was loaded onto a plinth and moved here 6 kilometers
when Lake Nasser was constructed. It's just incredible that they moved the entire temple in situ as a one complete structure. Let's go see inside.
Thutmose III ruled Egypt over 3,500 years ago. This temple is one of the first and oldest Egyptian temples created in Nubia. Thutmose III is a mighty warrior, although he's also remembered from the drama between him and his stepmother Hatshepsut, who also ruled. Many of the faces of Thutmose have been hacked out subsequently after his death. Many successors of Thutmose added on to this temple, calling Thutmose the Lord of Bega, connecting him to the god of the dead, Osiris. Like Ramses years later, Thutmose is also shown being suckled by the goddesses. Many Coptic graffiti from the 6th century can be found here, drawn by Coptic priests who used this as a church and housing. The first court might be largely damaged, but go inside and you'll be astounded by the level of detail. The sanctuary is shared between Thutmose III and his son and successor Amenhotep II. A thought-out slit in the ceiling was carved to allow light to bathe the temple. Thutmose III shown wearing a yellow nemes, beautiful turquoise necklaces, with the god Ra on this side and Ra Horakti on the other side, giving him the key of life and the other supporting him. Thutmose III wanted to show that he was accepted by the gods after the debacle with his stepmother Hatshepsut. The thing is, Thutmose was too young. Hatshepsut had to take control to keep the country stable. The priests of Amun supported Hatshepsut in this, and after, they still continued to support Thutmose, as we see him giving many offerings to Amun. Thutmose's eyes, nose, and mouth have been chiseled out here, as well as his name, a fate that befell this pharaoh when people figured out what happened between him and Hatshepsut. At one point, he started changing Hatshepsut's temples, but the people, some of them at least, were not having it. Painted in blue, the hidden god Amun, bathed in a ray of sunlight. The namesake for Thutmose III's son, Amenhotep II. Amenhotep II did much to please Amun. We have stela coming from this temple where Amenhotep says that he has defeated the enemies in the north, in Libya and Syria. He then says he defeated the enemies in the south, in Nubia. He took 6 of these enemies and hung them on the walls of Thebes. He then went down into Nubia and hung one from a temple in Napata. Amenhotep even says that he hung enemies from the prow of his boat returning from the foreign lands. These were clear warning messages from Amenhotep II to the Nubians. He extended his father's temple, not only dedicated now to Amun, but to Ra Horakti as well. Here is a pharaoh between 2 gods, with the name above, Amun-hotep, the ruler of Inu. Inu is Cairo, Menefer, Memphis. So this is Amenhotep II inside this temple of Thutmose III. Even in the courtyard, we have the name of Thutmose IV repeated throughout. So this temple was added on and adapted by several kings. The temple was originally built to celebrate Thutmose III's Jubilee, shown performing these celebrations like leading the cows of Amun or running around the track, a tradition that dates back over 1,000 years before the reign of Thutmose III, something that every pharaoh wanted to do. The hypostyle hall contains the names of 3 dynastic successors, Thutmose III, his son Amenhotep II, and his son Thutmose IV. Thutmose is shown on an equal level with the gods, something that Ramses II would do many years later during the 19th dynasty. Inside this temple at Amada on Lake Nasser, we have 2 19th dynasty rulers. Very interestingly, here we have Siptah. His name is written here, the very young, sickly king. He was so young and so ill that his sister over here, Ta-Wazret, actually took the throne as a co-regent, and then she became a fully fledged pharaoh. Unfortunately, things went a little bit awry for Ta-Wazret, but it's quite interesting to see that they even left their mark in a temple all the way in the south in Nubia, Siptah and Ta-Wazret. Philae Temple. Built mainly in the Greek period 2,300 years ago, this temple was dedicated to Isis, the passionate and powerful goddess shown in unique scenes here.
We have the goddess of the Delta playing the harp to baby Horus and Isis.
Isis became pregnant spiritually from her deceased husband, Osiris. And the pharaoh was seen as Horus on earth. She also was associated with queens.
In the form of the goddess Isis Hathor, there's a lady called Alison, and she is the sister of Cleopatra. Not the great Cleopatra VII, but one of the other Cleopatras from before her.
And we all know Cleopatra was Isis on earth.
I'm going to take you to see the top of Philae Temple.
From up here, we can appreciate the splendor of this landscape, yet life was not always as beautiful as it appears, as seen on one scene.
I want to show to you the most special piece, in my opinion, in this temple. Here we have the god Mandulus, the god from Nubia, depicted here in this temple. And this text written right here is the final hieroglyphic written in ancient Egypt.
Really?
Around 300 AD. They came in here to convert the Egyptians. This was the last hideaway for the Egyptians. They came in here, the Coptic Christians came in to convert them. This man wrote a little note explaining that on the 24th of August, he was writing this here, asking that his spirit be saved from the people invading here. Oh, and the most sad thing is, it looks like when he finished writing, something happened. Yeah. His chisel hits onto here.
So it's a dramatic
It's
and
the
sad
final one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very special. Very special
What a
indeed.
fascinating story.
This structure, known as the Bed of the Gods, was built by Roman Emperor Trajan, where he would arrive on his boat to visit the temple.
There is so much to see here at Philae Temple. It's one of my favorite temples because you just get a sense of the importance of the religion of the ancient Egyptians. Elephantine Temple is on an island in the middle of the Nile, and at the moment it is closed to the public and it is being restored, and you can see where the original stones are and where they filled them in, and as you go along they've very kindly extended the old drawings with new drawings to show you what it used to look like. So this temple should be opened very soon to show to everyone, but it's actually quite amazing how they are able to restore it for people to view. Senusert III, or Sesostris III, was the pharaoh in the 12th dynasty, and he's very famous for his statues. He looks very displeased, but he was actually an amazing pharaoh, and he led wars into Nubia to go and conquer this African country below Egypt. This chapel is built by Sesostris III. It's the feet of Sesostris III. The top of this is actually inside the British Museum now. He went into Nubia and he wanted to get the gold. And because of Sesostris's efforts with the Nubians, they actually became allies, and Nubia then became a very strong part of the Egyptian culture. We're going to go into the basement to have a look underneath the temple. It's quite impressive, so let's go. There's a lot of bats, so let's make it fast. This tomb dates back to the 4th dynasty, and it is actually extremely rare to find a tomb, yet alone a tomb for a priest, underneath a temple. Let's go inside. We're greeted by Hathor. Look at the beautiful colors still. This is also Hathor, but with a different crown on. She's got the red crown on. Along with Hathor, we see Khnum with Thutmose III. This temple is closed to the public, so it is very special for us to be showing you here right now, and hopefully you will be able to come enjoy it very soon. And the colors are still here. They are busy showing you what used to be here, so it's actually very amazing to be in here. Thutmose again, the stepson of Hatshepsut, Queen Hatshepsut. Wow, this is beautiful. Oh wow, I love this depiction of Hathor. I've never seen her wearing different crowns like that. This temple was built by Thutmose III to leave his mark in Aswan. I mean, a lot of the monuments that we do see of him today, it's actually Hatshepsut's monuments that he took her name off. Yeah,
but we didn't find any out of things for Moses there, and I think the gift will like it.
Yeah, and also Ramses II, he restored all of Hatshepsut's names because he admired Hatshepsut for being a strong woman. Towards the back, we see a defaced statue of what would have been Ramses III and Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. Close to the public, at the back of the temple, are some of the most exquisite chambers you will ever see. Oh wow! This is how the ancient Egyptians saw heaven. Look at this doorway.
Going through into here, we see bones. Hapi, the god of the Nile. Look at the color on the pharaoh. And above, we have Horus and Thoth tying Egypt together. And here we have the 7 cows that the pharaoh would take into his afterlife with him. Look at this beautiful color and the detail on the god Hapi, the blue and the gold. Here we have the pharaoh making an offering to Thoth, Osiris again, and these texts, am I right? These texts are from the Book of the Dead.
The Book of the Dead was essentially your guideline on how to enter the afterlife, known as the Duat, and to be allowed by the god Osiris into the field of reeds, where you will live happily for the rest of eternity.
Come through here into this shrine, which was dedicated to Ramses III and the god Osiris, where you see this beautiful wall and the arched ceiling. And something that you notice is that on either side, it's equal, it's reflected. What's happening there is happening here. It's mirrored perfectly, and that is to show the ancient Egyptians' belief in the afterlife, to show what you do in this life, it will be happening in the afterlife. The parallel between life and death. This is from the view at Abul Hagag, the mosque here, inside the Luxor Temple complex. And if you are allowed to come up here and have a view, you can see a really great perspective of the temple, and you can actually see a nice close-up of the statues of Ramses. You're actually looking at the great king in his eyes.
Ramses II, like every other pharaoh, has left a legacy for the world, and they will be standing here for thousands of years once we are all gone. This is Luxor Temple like you would have never seen it before, from a totally different angle. Inside Abul Hagag Mosque, there are actually pillars and parts of Luxor Temple that they've used to construct the mosque many, many years ago. It's very special to be allowed to come in here. Come look at this. These are the cartouches for Ramses II. Inside this Muslim mosque, it's actually very special to see this. Wow. And we're standing here, the statue of Ramses and his temple inside. These are pillars and stone from an Egyptian temple, and inside is an Islamic tomb. And it's very special because it's the two civilizations, the two religions, living together as one in peace. And there we see Ramses and Nefertari. A different sight is seeing Luxor Temple at night, and at night actually you can really feel the grandeur of the scale that this place was built on, and you really should try and come here at night to feel the splendor and the magic of these columns at night, everything illuminated.